The fact that the left-wing media is up there patting themselves on the back, and all of them, Piers, they're all making the adjustment. From Chris Cuomo to Stephen A. Smith, everybody now is like, oh, we messed up. Guys, we're not like the left. They're exactly like the left, Piers. I'm not going to give them any leeway. They all knew, but they kept their mouth shut because it's not Trump.
The fact is, they believe that they are actually moderates. They believe they're telling the American people the truth, and they believe they're getting away with murder because they continue to throw their own bias into everything else that they report.
If Trump, with the help of Elon Musk, stopped an asteroid that was about to hit Earth, the next day CNN and all these leftists would complain that he's polluting the world with asteroid debris. This is why your party is going to keep losing over and over and over, because you guys are standing on issues that it's so common sense.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Okay, so as you can see from that intro, we got another Piers Morgan debate coming in, and we've got Vinny on this one. Vinny never disappoints. He's always coming in. He says some outrageous stuff, sure, but for the most part, he's on point. He's logical. He's based in reality, as a matter of fact. But we've also got this congressperson, right? Somebody running for Congress. She's not in Congress yet, but she's running as a progressive populist, which is just, you know, the woke nonsense incarnate, if you will. That's what this person represents. We're going to see that. We're going to expose this person. Hopefully, she gets elected, because I'll say that because this just shows how the Democrats have no message. They have nothing behind them. They are in utter chaos. They are totally falling apart. And we're going to see that firsthand, y'all. But we can already see it, can't we? The polling and everything else. They don't have a message. They don't have a moral compass. They don't have anything currently. They need to rebuild. They need to strategize and come back to the center a little bit, where Americans are actually at, so they can actually start winning elections again and get back to where they used to be, where they actually had some popularity and people had faith in the Democratic Party. Yeah, that's right. But before we get into the debate, y'all, do me that big favor and smash that like button for me. I really, really would appreciate it. It goes a long way to help this channel out to grow. And if y'all are concerned with media manipulations these days, subscribe to this channel, because that is what we do for the most part. We read the news, we go over the manipulations to figure out exactly what the facts are around the news, get the manipulations so we know how to handle what's actually going on out in the world, because we don't want to be left out in the cold with just the corporate press narrative, because we all know they just push an agenda, folks. And we might not agree with that agenda. So y'all subscribe, share this video anywhere and everywhere you can. Join the channel. We have memberships. That would be great. I would be eternally grateful if you guys could do that for me. Y'all are the best out there. But anyway, without any further ado, let's jump into it, y'all.
What is your overview of the Trump 3-month reign so far? And people call it a reign because they think he's behaving like a monarch, which I'd have no problem with, but obviously Americans don't like that.
I mean, yeah, that's part of the reason that we're not a part of England anymore. I would say that it's been disastrous. I mean, yesterday I was at a veterans rally for people who had been laid off from their jobs because of Musk's Doge, for people that aren't able to get health care, who were exposed to tar pits overseas when they were serving, for people who are struggling with the care at the VA as Musk and Trump cut it. And this is in the only red part in the district that I'm running in. I talk to so many older people who are like, I don't have a 401k anymore. And as much as Vinny wants to say, like, wait a year, wait 2 years, people can't wait a year or 2 years right now, because most Americans can't afford an emergency $1,000 expense. And this isn't only limited to blue areas. This is also in red ones. Our allies can't trust us. We seem volatile. We seem weird. And we seem extreme, just on the economic front. And that's not even counting how many people in this country are terrified for their very existence, for the existence of due process. I mean, you can say, well, criminals don't deserve due process. Well, due process is how we decide whether or not you're a criminal. We absolutely need it. And the answer isn't deporting people to concentration camps overseas.
Okay. Do you see any successes for Trump so far?
Ooh, good question. I mean, he seems to be doing his vision as he wants.
He renamed a body of
Gulf
water.
of America seems like a really big win for him.
Good.
I'm sure that he's.
No, it's a serious question.
I personally don't.
I just want to know whether I want to know whether you can genuinely bring it into yourself to say, yes, he's done this really well.
I am genuinely thinking about this. I think that there is something to be said of, I personally don't like Project 2025, but they are accomplishing the goals in there. And I don't mean that in a snarky way. If that is what you want to do, then they are doing that well.
I mean, what's extraordinary to me, see, I would take everything you say a lot more seriously. If you said, you know what, Piers, what is indisputable is that on the southern border, there's been a 95% drop in the number of people coming over illegally. That is clearly, demonstrably, inarguably, and non-partisan, inarguably, a fact. And he should be celebrated and acknowledged for that. But it's being completely ignored by many on the mainstream media. And I get, this is my problem with it, is that the anti-Trump sentiment is always so intense that no one can even bring it upon themselves to give him credit for an obvious win for America. That is an obvious win for the United States. There are many other things you could quibble with and question or feel enraged by. But you can't say that, Kat? You can't say on the southern border that's a big success?
No, I think that the way that Trump is treating immigrants, this is a country that's built by immigrants. My dad is an immigrant.
These are people pouring in illegally in their millions over the southern
there
border.
are people that are
He's talking
seeking
about
asylum, and we need
Well, they're not
to
all
have...
speaking asylum. You know that, Kat.
No,
Come on. You don't
bullshit.
think, you genuinely
Come on.
think
We
10
literally
million...
just
Well, hang on, just to be
deported
clear,
men
you
who
genuinely think
claimed
nearly 10
asylum
million...
in El Salvador
Hang on,
being
Kat.
shipped to a concentration in El Salvador.
Kat, we're not talking about the ones being shipped to prisons in El Salvador. We're talking about the reportedly 10 million people who came over the southern border in the Biden administration. You think they're all genuine asylum seekers?
I think that we don't have a good enough asylum process, and there are plenty that are claiming asylum, and it doesn't matter whether someone is claiming asylum or not. Trump is treating them all the same. I mean, he just deported a 2-year-old U.S. citizen back to Honduras who was being treated for cancer. And that's the problem here, is when it comes to our border issues, we are focusing on, it's treated so broadly and so angrily, so hatefully, and there's no difference between these people. The way that this administration is treating them is inhumane.
Okay, just from that little last section right there, you can tell she has no idea what goes on across that southern border. She doesn't realize the drug trafficking, the human smuggling, all the horrific nonsense, the crimes that are committed by the cartel. Cleaning up that southern border, she starts talking about asylum seekers or something like that. Like, come on, people seeking asylum is vastly different than the drug cartels smuggling drugs and all this other nonsense across that southern border. She takes the corporate press line on this instead of doing the research herself to see what's actually going on across that southern border. And she gets into all this nonsense. Oh, we're treating these people inhumanely. No, the people that are seeking asylum are actually coming in. They're going to the detention center where how that's supposed to be, because we need to vet these people. This was a major problem with the Biden administration. They just took everybody in with open arms, said, hey, what's your name? Without checking any of these people, just got their name, gave them a court date, and let them go off into the country. Like, we can't do that. So many terrorists came across our southern border. We need border security, and that is something the Trump administration that has done that has been beyond expectations, right? The numbers are amazing. They're lower than they've ever been, even in Donald Trump's first term. This is great. Now, a lot of people complain about the deportations. That's a vastly different subject, though. Right now, some of these, they talking about due process and all this nonsense, all these people going to CECOT, which is that prison in El Salvador. Now, a lot of people have a lot of problems with that because you've got the corporate press over here yelling and screaming, gnashing their teeth about due process. You know what? The due process for illegal immigration is not what you think it is. It's not what the corporate press makes it out to be, right? When they say due process, you think of due process for American citizens. You think, oh, you go to court, you get an arraignment date, then, later down the road, you go to trial, a judge figures out blah, 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 right? That's not what due process for criminal aliens is all about, right? These people come across that southern border, and if it's illegal, you're caught in the country. If you're not caught at the southern border, then that's a vastly different process that you are due. As a matter of fact, you don't really get a trial. You don't go to an immigration judge because you're not an immigrant. You're in the country illegally. That's why they call them criminal aliens and not illegal immigrants. That's vastly different. Illegal immigrants is people that immigrate into this country, get a visa, get a green card, whatever it may be, that live in this country, and that visa or green card or whatever it is expires. That's an illegal immigrant. Somebody that crosses that southern border and just comes into the country and just goes about their daily lives, that is a criminal alien. And the wordage is key on this because, once again, you know, the mainstream news and most Democrats and all these people, they say unregular migrant or undocumented migrant. Well, that's not what these people are. Criminal aliens is vastly different. They don't get to go to trial. They don't get to see a judge. You get an interview with a CIS agent when you get detained to see about what your situation is. If you claim asylum, that's something totally different. Then we decide if your asylum claim is legitimate, right? But if you don't claim asylum, if you're just in the country doing your thing and you get arrested, you get kicked out post haste. You just get booted out. You chose not to go about doing it the proper way. You chose to do an end run around the system. You're cheating the system. You're trying to game the system. And this wordage is key, folks. It really is. And people need to get the wordage right on this because they're vastly different. But, you know, she talks about this dream world and all this other nonsense. People don't have a 401k anymore. That's just a blatant lie. That's nonsense. Your 401k may have went down a little bit. But come on, let's be realistic with this. We know the stock markets bounce around all the time. Sure, they don't crash like they did when Trump announced the tariffs. But once again, it's going to bounce back. Just wait it out. Once again, that's not cruel. I mean, what if the stock market would have crashed without the tariffs? What would you be saying then? Like, come on, these things happen. Sure, it's induced by Trump. But once again, Trump is playing the long game here, trying to fix the economy, trying to fix, well, at least one aspect of the economy. Now, once again, do we know if this is going to work? Yeah, we're not 100% sure if these tariffs are going to actually work. The early indicators are pointing in the right direction. But there's still a lot of uncertainty out there. So we know we're going to wait on this one and see what we have to say about this. But a lot of people are putting their trust in Trump. And hey, rightly so, wrongly so, however you may feel, it is what it is. This is the situation that we find ourselves in. At least Trump was willing to do something to try to fix this untenable situation that we've been pretty much, it's a self-induced situation, if you will, because it's been leadership after leadership after leadership that has just decided to ignore the situation and not fix it and not do anything about it. And now we're getting into this, you know, unsustainable situation where, yeah, we're not sure what's going to happen. But, you know, we're going to get into these topics. Let's keep going.
An utter repudiation of a lot of what the progressive left stands for. So if you end up with AOC as the standard bearer going forward, I think you end up losing again.
Frankly, I disagree. I mean, Harris, especially after the DNC, you know, was campaigning with Liz Cheney, trying to present herself as like this moderate Nikki Haley, Kamala Harris voter that obviously didn't really exist, or at least not in huge numbers. I think what a lot of us call progressivism is really just common sense. I mean, my big vision for the world is that every American should afford housing, groceries, and healthcare with money left over to save and spend. And that doesn't seem like a very high bar, and it's not for any of our peer countries, but it is here. And neither party is truly messaging on that. I mean, you have on the right now, you know, having tax cuts that benefit the super rich, but not the average American. And these tariffs will cost the average American, I think, about $4,000 every year. And as for Democrats, there are a lot of them that are more interested in their, corporate donors and trying to always cater to this very like milquetoast vision when both parties should be going towards that idea. Housing, groceries, and healthcare with money left over to save and take your kid to the zoo or go to the movies.
But you know the
I don't
reason,
think anyone here would disagree.
the reason people don't focus on those things or talk about them is that on the progressive left, you'll also have people at high levels of the party come out and say with a straight face, we think biological men should be in women's sport. And the moment most average Americans hear that, they do what you just did. They roll their eyes and go, you lot are insane. And you're doing it for a different reason. You're doing it because you think, I'm insane for saying that. But I can tell you, as somebody who's always been pretty liberal, I think that strategy was completely insane. The idea that you would let your leaders go out and propagate such bullshit, which most Americans with any vein of common sense, as you call it, know is bullshit, that then allows exactly what happened. The Republicans to run with that and say, look at these people, they're nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I do think the Democratic Party has a messaging issue, but I think this is less about the Democratic Party and more about right-wing media, which I watch and analyze for a living, or at least before I started running for Congress. There's been plenty of research talking about when people transition, how it doesn't really impact their effects in sports. This is a very, very, very tiny percent of the
No, it's
population.
complete bullshit. I'm sorry.
Can I please finish
by the way,
this?
I'm not right-wing media
Nope.
in any shape or form.
I'm not saying you are.
I'm just telling you, I'm not, and I think it's bullshit. The idea that it's a small thing, it's not. You're seeing it more and more and more and more and more. There are millions of people, young people in America identifying as trans. This problem is going to get worse and worse and worse. And the issue is about women's rights to equality and to fairness and to safety. Nothing more than that. It's not about
The
trans.
amount of trans people
I want
in
the same,
sports
but
in the first
just to be
place
clear,
is
I want the same.
minuscule.
Hang on, Kat. I want the same for trans people, but not at the expense of women's rights. That's what it's about. And if you can't have a Democrat Party that stands up completely rock solid for women's rights, because it's far too concerned with promoting a trans agenda where it erodes women's rights, you're never going to get re-elected as a party, ever.
Okay, this is the thing. Trans people's existence and even like the 40 people that are in sports isn't the big issue with women's rights. It isn't a women's rights issue.
But it becomes one when you
Can I please
support
finish?
obvious unfairness. That's the point.
Can I please finish?
Sure.
Thank you. The thing here is you have Republicans right now in the state at the federal level that are saying we need to check children's genitals to make sure they're the right ones before they play. That's a harm to children and women. The SAVE Act, which is going to stop millions of married women from being able to vote if they don't have their birth certificate and proof of their name change, that's an actual harm to women. Trans people existing, and in like one state that did a law against trans kids being in sports, there was literally one trans child that was in any sport who was supported by their own team. This is lawmakers at the state level, people that are being paid, that are full-ass adults, that are bullying children.
So just to be
for
clear,
no
okay. So
reason.
just to be clear, you would personally like it to continue. You think it's perfectly okay for biological men to compete in women's sport. Is that your position?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't mind trans women being in sports.
Okay.
I
Then this is the problem. Then, Kat, with
trans
respect to
women,
you,
and I beat them.
Kat, with great respect to you, I'm very glad you're not running this issue in America because it is grotesquely unfair to women.
All right, so to address the first part of that, you know, she gives this dream speech right here. Oh, we should all have money left over in the bank. We should be able to pay our rent easily and blah, 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 blah. You know, they put out all this fluff nonsense, right? Because it sounds nice. It sounds like, oh, this is somebody that's going to work for me. But if you notice, there's no solutions. Go to her campaign website, go to her TikTok and look up. She's constantly talking about the rich billionaires and all this other nonsense, but never offers a single freaking solution. This is a problem with congressmen. They love to speak to you emotionally and get you just sucked into what they're talking about. Yes, we should have money left over at the end of the month. We shouldn't have to struggle to buy groceries and all this other nonsense. But they never give a solution as to how they're going to get to that utopia, if you will. And talking about progressive, oh, it just seems like it's common sense. It's not common sense, right? Some of it, sure. Like I always say, you know, even a blonde squirrel from time to time gets a nut. Hey, you can get certain things right. But what is the solution? What is the roadmap, the blueprint on how to get where you're going? They never offer any solutions whatsoever and then criticize the other side for actually implementing solutions. Okay, so now to address the rest of that clip. Okay, this is part of the problem with the Democratic Party. This is evil, as a matter of fact. They're trying to shame you into believing the nonsense agenda that they're pushing. They're using emotion to try to bludgeon you over the head to say that you're a bigot because you think normally, because you think that men should not play in women's sports. You're the person, you're part of the problem here. No, that is absurd. It's insane. And if these people would just drop the woke nonsense, they would probably win many, many more elections. They would win a lot more elections, but no, they want to latch on to this insanity and then try to force you into their worldview. That's not how politics works, lady. And this is why they're going to lose. This whole transgender issue, people aren't comfortable with it. They don't want to talk about it because they don't want to be shamed by the left. They don't want to walk on eggshells, and because of it. This is nonsense, y'all. It's blatant nonsense. And these people, once again, they're trying to bludgeon you over the head emotionally and, with these buzzwords. Oh, well, this is just right-wing propaganda, trying to ignore the fact that nobody, for the vast majority of Americans, think that men should not play in women's sports, boys should not be in girls' sports, and they're trying to use these one-off studies that don't really prove what they're talking about here. You go and read the study, and it's not exactly what they're saying it is, but you can tell that whoever was in charge of the study, you just go look at who funded the study, they're pushing an agenda here, and they love to use that, once again, as a weapon. They use all these tools in the arsenal. They're using everything they can to try to force you into their worldview, which is not going to happen, folks. This is why we need to push back on this sort of nonsense, right? We're all tolerant people around here, right? We don't like the nonsense. We don't like the hate. We don't like the bigotry and all that, but real bigotry, real hate, real racism. We don't like that, but the woke left is trying to push this nonsense on everybody, and it's a small minority of the woke left that are actually pushing this agenda, and they are the loudest, folks. They are the ones that make you think that they are the vast majority. This is all just a facade. That's all it is. It's a facade. It's a small minority of these people that need to be pushed out of the Democratic Party because they are the ones that are sowing chaos, sowing division, and destroying the Democratic Party. You got millions and millions of Democratic voters that would be a lot more enthusiastic about voting for people like Kamala Harris if she didn't promote, transgender surgeries for inmates and, open borders and all this other nonsense. That doesn't make any sense. And once again, you can always tell it's when they use emotions to try to lull you into their worldview. Hey, there's a bit of a problem with that, isn't there? Yeah, just a slight problem. But let's keep going.
The whole trans thing. But I think the point is, as the Democrats try and find a new voice, a new way to compete, and a new way to win, I just feel they have to go down the Gavin Newsom route of abandoning just propagating all this progressive far left stuff. Otherwise, they're just unelectable.
Yeah, so just two thoughts on this. Just one really quick on the moral bankruptcy of Vinny's position. I have a more nuanced view than Kat does on trans women in sports, but the idea that having one trans woman in a swimming meet is unacceptable, but I don't care if I wrongly sent, but I don't care, but you don't care apparently if we wrongly sent one person to a concentration camp in El Salvador. If we you don't care about due process. No. You said you don't care about due process.
Two different points. You're conflating two different points.
No, I'm not.
Two different points. Let me guess. And you're using the word concentration camp. Tim, you're using the word concentration camp. So you're one of those people that's like, Trump is Hitler. Again, your dumbass party has watered down the name Hitler. The name Hitler isn't even strong anymore. Because you know what? You compare him with Trump, people go, if Hitler's like Trump, then he's not bad. Stop saying that, guys. That's stupid rhetoric. Concentration camp. You're an illegal gang member. Get the out of my country. Period. You don't belong here. You have deportation orders. You're not supposed to be here. You beat your wife.
Listen. We've got to, unfortunately, we have to wrap it there. All I would say is, Tim, in relation to your point, Tim, I actually think it is wrong to deport people to prisons in El Salvador
you.
without proper due
And it's
process.
a much more
Don't
serious
be in a gang, Piers. Don't be in a gang.
Well, Vinny, I have not seen yet enough evidence for my liking that this guy was a member of that gang. If there is,
why would you?
hang on. If there
Why do
is,
they have to show you?
if there is,
Why do
put
they
it
have to
out
show
there.
you?
If there is, put it out there, and then I may change my mind. But until I see it, I'm afraid I'm not satisfied. And I also think the trans issue
you guys think
is
that they're
important.
lying?
Well, let's wait and see.
Are they lying, Piers?
Let's wait and see.
Yes.
They're not, you
Initially,
guys think they're lying.
Well, no, Vinny,
Yes,
but
they're
initially,
lying.
Yes,
and just
they're
to be
lying
clear,
to you.
just to be the initial,
lying.
the administration initially said it was a mistake. Their words, not mine.
Okay, so I imagine the longtime viewers of this channel are just rolling over laughing at all of this because, oh, you haven't seen the evidence, have you? Right, you want due process. Well, he got his due process. As a matter of fact, we've gone over this ad nauseum, for crying out loud. It's absurd. This guy, like, the evidence that he was an MS-13 gang member is kind of overwhelming as far as evidence of being in a gang is concerned. Okay, let's get this. Okay, so he was arrested with MS-13 gang members. He was wearing MS-13 gang member affiliate clothing. Okay, there was an informant working as an undercover for specifically going undercover into MS-13 to find gang members, testified in court. That was enough for not only an immigration judge, but a 3-judge panel of appellate judges. That was enough to convince 4 judges that he was an MS-13 gang member. Then we see he's a wife beater, he's a possible human smuggler, blah, 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 blah. The evidence goes on. You saw the tattoos on his hand, right? This is enough evidence for the vast majority of people. But the reason, like people like Piers Morgan and all these other people, oh, they're lying. No, they are lying because it's either a lie or they're just being completely ignorant and haven't looked into the details of this story. It's got to be the ignorance part because you don't want to apply malice where incompetence can be explained away, right? And I say incompetence because anybody is capable of reading the freaking news, which is what we do around here for the most part. You read the news. As a matter of fact, I just covered a video, should have been live this morning, going over the human smuggling part of Gilmar Abrego Garcia. No, but none of this gang membership nonsense really even matters. It doesn't, because he got his deportation orders. And they say, oh, he was mistakenly deported. That is also a corporate press lie. That is a lie. Yes. Yes, it is. As a matter of fact, that is a lie. The administrative error wasn't in his deportation. It was a damn interview with a CIS agent. That was the error. It wasn't he was mistakenly deported. No, that wasn't it at all. He was going to get deported regardless. Regardless, he was going to get deported. No judge would have been able to stop that. They wouldn't have stopped it, as a matter of fact, because once again, he had seen an immigration judge and a 3-panel appellate circuit all approved his deportation, just not to El Salvador. But once again, that was from 2019. Now, the situation in El Salvador that prevented him from being deported had changed. The gang that he was in fear of his life over, which was why he got to stay in the first place, were not operating in El Salvador any longer. So that threat to his life did not exist. That was the reason for the CIS agent interview. The CIS agent was going to interview this guy, tell him, look, this doesn't exist anymore, blah, 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 blah. You're safe to go back to El Salvador. And he would have been sent back to El Salvador. Now, I understand this idea of just rounding people up once again and sending them to CECOT, which is a maximum security terrorist prison, right? Which I know a lot of people are like scared of that. Oh, we don't want, people getting sent off to prison without due process. Well, you know what? If these people are in the country illegally and they're suspected gang members or terrorists, they don't get the due process that you think that they get, right? Now, this is like something that I explained earlier. They came into the country illegally. That's invading this nation. A predatory incursion is what it's called by the administration. You can call it whatever the hell you want to, but this is simply not the same thing as somebody just crossing that border, going to a Border Patrol agent and saying, I want to come into the country. They're vastly different, folks. These people evaded Border Patrol and snuck into the country. Like, what due process do you think that they deserve here? Do you think they need to go to trial? What are they arguing at trial? What is their legal argument at trial? Seriously, let me know down in the comments section what you think their argument is, because there is no argument as far as that is concerned. They are in the country illegally and they get deported post haste, ASAP, stat, whatever the hell you want to call it. There are many mechanisms by which these people can be deported, and most of them don't have the due process that you think that they have. Right? They get an interview with a CIS agent. That's about it. Right? Once again, like I said, immigration court is for actual immigrants and asylum seekers. Of course, that's asylum. That's a totally different section of the immigration courts. There is no court for people that sneak into this country illegally and then get caught, especially people that beat on their wives and potentially or allegedly smuggle humans around and are affiliated with gang members. Right? You could be just affiliated with that gang member and still get deported. Just post haste. You don't get the due process that you think. And this is something we need to get across to Americans. Right? Right? These people aren't U.S. citizens. If these were U.S. citizens, that would be a vastly different story. Right? Vastly different story. They would get their day in court, if you will. But as far as criminal aliens, like seriously, do you think they deserve to go to court? By what process? Does that make sense at all? Like, think about that for a second. Think about you in a situation. You sneak into a country undetected and then get caught in that country. Do you think you deserve to go to court and make some sort of argument as to why you should stay in that country? That makes no sense, folks. I mean, think about this on a smaller scale. That would be tantamount, essentially, to you breaking into somebody's house and they call the cops show up and then say, well, there's nothing we can do. They must stay in your house until we go to court to figure out whether they can stay in your house or not. That's what these people are arguing for. That's what Democrats are arguing for. Somebody that breaks into your house has the right to stay in your house until a judge says, well, if they got to go or if they can stay. Well, it's not their decision, is it? It's your house. This is all just absurd. The narrative that has been pushed, that has put the brain trust in people's head that these people deserve their day in court. It's nonsense. It really, really is, y'all. But I think that's all I got on this one. Y'all make sure to check out my next video, which should be going live 9 a.m. in the morning. There's a bombshell report that was just released that'll blow your freaking brains off. It's absurd, y'all. Something we uncovered from the Biden administration that's going to make headlines wide and far. And I just so happened to catch it this morning. So y'all make sure and stay tuned. Check out my next video. But y'all let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. Like I said, y'all, if you think that these people deserve their due process, make the argument for it down in the comment section. I would love to hear from you. Make the argument for anything. It doesn't matter. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. But that's all I got on this one. I want to thank everybody for watching. And y'all try to have a good day. Stay legitical. Peace.